Hi, I'm Nicholas Seminario, founder of Dark Angel Company. This podcast is to share the untold stories of just a few of the many people battling mental illnesses in this world. If you're in need of a little inspiration to keep fighting or to feel less alone in your battle, keep listening and share to spread awareness. This is the Dark Angel Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dark Angel Podcast. It is Nick, your host again. Please rate and comment on the show. 5 stars really helps us, and it gives us more opportunities to do amazing episodes like this. Today we have a really special guest. It is Jordan Harouche, and he seriously has gone through a tremendous amount of pain, suffering, and it's really an amazing story. So I'm really excited to get into today's episode. I first want you to introduce yourself, give us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into your story.
Alrighty. Hi, I'm Jordan Harouche. I'm 19 years old, and I'm a native Long Islander from Great Neck. On October 8th of 2019, I came back from sleepaway camp, and I'd gained a lot of weight. My parents had noticed, and then my parents were working in the city at the time. I was the only one home. My 2 brothers were at college, and they'd keep coming home when I was still sleeping. And, we thought maybe I had a sickness, maybe I had mono, maybe I had something. But through my parents just worrying about me, they decided to take me to my pediatrician, where he wasn't sure what I had, and he was like, we need to do further testing. So he decided to take me to the ER, and then going through that with, I think I was there for like 3 days of just blood tests and everything. They finally decided to do an MRI where they found that I had tumors in my pituitary and my frontal lobe of my brain.
Okay. So now you were 14, right, at this time? 15. So 15 years old, right? You're in what, sophomore year of high school?
Yeah, sophomore year.
So you're in your sophomore year of high school, right? Just doing what normal 15-year-olds do, and then you wake up one day and...
No, junior year.
Junior year, okay.
No, sophomore year, right?
Yeah, sophomore year.
Yeah.
And so, you just wake up one day and you're like, now I'm going to hospitals. I find out I have tumors. What the hell is going through your mind?
Really a lot of it was just... So basically, I was diagnosed at a Northwell right by my house. I was diagnosed at Long Island Jewish Hospital, which is literally down the block from me. But it was the range of where am I going to get treated and who am I going to do this with? So I think a lot of it was just a push of getting tested. It was getting IVs. I was stuck everywhere in my body. They couldn't even get blood from me. So they're like, we can do it from your feet. And I was like, fuck that shit. Do it from my hands. Because I thought, it was such a rush of emotion and just sitting at a doctor's office. And especially because it's obviously a friendly environment, but not a friendly environment at the same time. So it was just debating where to get treated. So when we were deciding for my treatment, it was really just, we decided to transfer me to NYU because my grandfather worked at NYU for 42 years, and he worked with the brain oncology department as a technician. So he knew the whole brain oncology team, so then we decided to go there. Because then as we're going through the wave of treatment options, what I need to do, they said, you have to get a brain biopsy.
Okay.
So basically, I have a dent in my head, and I had to go through the brain biopsy, then I had to get a port implanted in my chest. Basically, do you know what a port is?
No, you could explain it.
So a Mediport is basically, it's an intravenous line that goes directly to your heart instead of you getting an IV every single time, because chemotherapy will burn your veins because of the chemicals and everything wrong with it. So it goes directly to your heart, and then they just put it in your chest, and they just go straight through your chest to be able to access it. So it was getting a port implanted into my chest. It was getting the brain biopsy. It was getting this whole wave of different things that I've never heard of before. And prior to cancer, I was literally a healthy kid.
Yeah.
Like I literally had like the perfect attendance record because I'd never missed school. I mean, it was such a wave of just emotion and support getting by people who I hadn't even spoken to for years. So it was so ridiculously like overwhelming and everything. And just being able to adjust myself to that. And it was like, I remember I made sure to shave my head before I did it because I didn't want to deal with the clumps of hair coming out. It's like my brother joined me with shaving my head. He shaved his head with me. We did it at a barber. And it was just, it was more of like just the overwhelm of like just preparing yourself for the situation, just mentally being there, which I feel like was really important to me.
Yeah, totally. And, for those of you guys who are listening and you don't know, Jordan had cancer. So this is going to be all about Jordan's cancer journey. I mean, as a 15-year-old, at any age, having to go through this is extremely traumatic, tough, let alone at 15, right? We're young, we're in school, we're worrying about getting good grades so we could get into a good college, we're worrying about sports if we play them. We're not worrying about these so-called adult things, right, that you would never think you'd have to worry about at 15 years old, right? So Jordan and I go to school together. We're at Hofstra. We actually just had a entrepreneurship class together. It was the first day of class, and our teacher goes around the room, and he's like, oh, does anybody have a business? So I raise my hand. Jordan raises his hand. A few other kids raise their hand. And on that day, Jordan shared what he does, which we're going to get into a little later on, but just a little synopsis of it is he created a not-for-profit cancer organization. So once he said that, I was very, very intrigued on that first day, and I was just like, damn, like that's really admirable. And I knew, I was like, you know what, I really would like to have him on. And as a few weeks went on, we got closer, we started talking more, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. And I'm really excited for you to be able to share this, because not only are you going to be able to help and impact people who went through what you went through and who are going through it currently, but people whose kids are going through it or people whose relatives are going through it, right? You're going to be able to kind of let people see it through your eyes. So I want to be able to get into your story. I know you also started a foundation with Disney. You have so many cool things that you've done with this where you didn't let this kind of steamroll you. You steamrolled it, as I like to say. So I want you to get into your entire story, right? So take us through this entire process, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Yeah. So once I started my treatment, it was going into the city. It was 6 rounds of chemotherapy every 2 weeks. So basically, I'd go in and I would have it where it'd be 6 days at the hospital, or I had the option for the other treatment was 3 days I can do in person and go home for the night. I decided to just do in treatment the whole entire time. It was more of just, it was the nausea, because with chemotherapy, you get super nauseous. You just feel terrible about yourself. So if I was home, I'd be taking nausea medications based off how I was feeling. Versus being in the hospital, you were on nausea medications the whole entire time. Also, the nice thing about NYU was they allowed my parents to come stay with me. So both my parents were staying with me in the hospital. And it was just more of it was a friendly environment. You're in the middle of New York City. The rooms that they had at the hospital were amazing. They had flat screen TVs, a pull-out couch. You could have a blow-up mattress in there. No problem. You could order food, whatever you wanted. Because especially I was so picky with eating, with being on chemotherapy. I'd only eat an egg for breakfast. Really? I'd only eat an egg. And then, you need to eat because you're taking so many medications. Because it was like, and also it was just more of the wave of medications I had to start taking. Because like now I take like 5 pills a day just in the morning. And then at night, 5 pills, middle of the day, a pill. And it's just learning how to handle taking medications. Because I had really never taken pills before that. Because I was never someone that got sick. And it was just the flush of just all of these things happening to you all at once, being able to handle it. And I always just had a positive attitude towards it, because I was like, I want to be the one that kicks ass to cancer, because it was just my personality type. It was like, I'm not letting something like this stop me. And it was more of like publicly being about it, because kids thought I was like getting kicked out of school. Because it was like rumors around my town going on. It was like he went to like juvie, he went to like, he got into drugs and shit. And I was like, holy crap, what the fuck do people think I'm like? So it was like having the mental thought of like, oh my God, people think something's really wrong with me. There's like rumors going around. And because I wasn't really telling anyone, because I couldn't. I was just so overwhelmed. And it was like, then I finally was able to tell people, like, holy shit, this is really what's happening to you. And I was like, yeah. And it was just.
That's crazy. So you're this innocent kid. You're going to get treatment, and kids are saying, "Oh yeah, he's going to juvie. He's doing drugs. He's off the rails."
Well, it was like I wasn't telling people, and it wasn't out of just wanting the privacy, but it was more of just like I didn't have the energy to go like tell everyone in the neighborhood like, "Hey, this is what happened to me," and also my friends who I did tell, they were like, "Is this private information? I don't want to tell someone," because it's like. I mean, obviously, later on, I just told everyone I was very open about my journey going through JZips and showing myself having cancer, starting my social media and stuff. But it was more of just people being able to look at it and understand it. And it's like once people found out, it was like just the parade of people coming and stopping by. It was so nice. And just seeing the support from others and was like, I mean, I'll tell a story in a little bit about my birthday, but it was just seeing the support of people. But it was also, it's hard to look at something that's like, do you want to go through something privately or do you want to be public about it? Was really important to me. And I think if I went through it privately, it wouldn't have helped my mental health for sure.
Yeah, and I could easily see that, right? It's almost like a battle really by yourself. You probably felt the support of everybody. What were your first reactions and thoughts when you found out you had cancer? Like I said, like that was probably never even in your mind, right? Like you said, you're a healthy kid, smart kid, always went to school. Now your life is flipped upside down.
Yeah, no. I mean, so I originally, when I found out I was sick, I thought I had mono. I had a crazy summer at Jewish sleepaway camp. I was like, I thought I had mono. I have had to have something like that wrong with me. But once I found out I was sick, it was like really like a step back. Because it was more of just seeing things and appreciating things around you was really a big thing, where it's looking at everything as a whole of things you appreciate, things you miss. Because especially being a lacrosse player, it was like when I knew I was going to miss lacrosse season and stuff like that. Because it's like I never didn't do travel. I only did the school team because I just never had the effort to want to do travel. And it's like looking at it and it's like you see I want to say whiplash really of just being impacted by something where you're having people around you who it's like, it was always weird because it was like kids would be like, are you going to live? And I was like, that's not the right question to ask someone. Because you don't want, like, obviously I knew I was going to live, but it was the question of like, this is awkward. Like, why are you asking me stuff like that? And it was just really taking it in, going slow, and just having the people around me really help me, push me.
So what was your mindset to going through this just in the beginning? Because I know now like your mindset is amazing and you were able to kind of see everything through, but what was your mindset at first? Because like, I mean, I'm just thinking like personally, if I found out that now I'm 15 years old, I find out I have cancer and now I can't do the things that at that time a normal 15-year-old was doing, I would be heartbroken, but the way you're talking about it, it really seems like you kind of, like you said, you were going to kick its ass. Like you didn't even think about like poor me at all. That's how it seems. Is that the case?
I'd say yes and no. Because for sure I was like, holy shit, I'm going through this. This is terrible for me. Like, and it's like, I always had the mental thought of like, I'm the fucking kid who gets to deal with this. Like, why not the other? Like, I never thought to myself, this kid should have it instead of me. That was never my mental thought. It was more of just like, why was I chosen to go through this? Why was I chosen to deal with this? Because like cancer wasn't a thing in my family. So it was like, and it's like, it's something I would never wish upon someone else. But it's just, it's so weird and so overwhelming where it's something where it's like, you don't even know how to mentally handle. Because it's like, I never saw like a therapist or anyone when I was sick. I always just kept it to myself. And people ask, how do you do that? And it's just because I don't know what to express. It's hard to put in words how you're feeling when you're going through stuff like that, especially. And it's really mentally distracting yourself, choosing something else to do, finding a different activity. Because it's like, even finding myself sleeping, because it'd be weird, because I had my port in my chest and I'd feel it when I'd slept on my left side. Now I only sleep on my left side because I'm back normal. But it's just getting the adjustments to what you need to deal with and mentally being able to handle stuff. It's like, it was always just hard looking at myself, especially once I started losing the hair. And it was like, sure, some days it would be funny where I'd take a piece of tape and just rip back my hair because it would just fall out. It didn't even matter. But it was like some days I'd look at myself and be like, this is annoying. And I'd always mute people's Instagram stories, Snapchat stories. I didn't want to see stuff. I didn't want to see the stuff I was missing. And it's like, it's hard to say, but it's like, when COVID happened, where I'd be like, I wasn't missing junior prom, any of those things. And I was like, this is important to me, because it was like, I feel bad for everyone else, but for me, it was so nice knowing that people weren't also having those experiences that I was going to miss, which is always like a fucking asshole thing to say. But it was like, I'm not missing lacrosse season. I'm not missing prom. I'm not missing these important things that everyone else would get to do.
Yeah, and look, I think that's a completely legit thought, right? Like, you didn't get the chance to do those things, so why wouldn't you? Not that you're happy that they didn't, it's more happy that you didn't have to miss out on it. And I think that's a completely legit thought, and I think 90% of people would think like that. I would think like that, right? It's like you said, it's not fair that you would have had to miss those things, so it does make it better that now you didn't, right? Everybody's kind of in that same boat. So I think that's completely legit. I don't think you should feel bad for that at all. And I know you said, so how long did you go through cancer treatment?
I got diagnosed when I was 15 years old, and I think I finished treatment in 2020. It was like a year of treatment, really. But it was going through chemo, and then after chemotherapy, I did proton radiation.
Okay.
Proton radiation is basically, it's a pencil tip of radiation instead of getting everywhere and blasting a large area like most common radiation does. So for us to do proton, it was literally like the height of COVID when everyone was shutting down schools, everyone was going home. I had to finish my treatment. So we were originally going to stay in Jersey. It's right by Rutgers where the place was, if you know where Rutgers is in that area, like the Giant Stadium and stuff. So it was just literally going 3 hours treatment there and back. So it was like I went there. I mean, so it was basically, I'll tell you my experience of there, because my experience there is always kind of a fun story to say. The first day I went there, we drove all the way up there, and they were like, we're going to do your mask. Because during it, you had to wear a mask to keep my head still. Okay. So basically, we're going to lay you on the table. You have to be naked. We're going to put you on the table, and then we're going to do the mask. So they go and they put the mask on me. It molds perfectly to my face. It still fits my face perfect. And they're like, all right, we're going to do your tattoos. I'm like, what the fuck you mean my tattoos? So they basically take a needle. They poke you, do your tattoos so your body lines up every single time. And it's like I'm a 16-year-old kid, butt naked in front of all these people. And they're like, oh, we're going to do it here. We're going to do it. It's like, well, one's above my dick. One's in the center of my stomach. One's right here on my chest. 2 are on my side. It's like, holy shit. Yeah. it's like 6 tattoos. They're just doing it to me. And my parents didn't tell me because they knew I'd freak out.
Oh, yeah. I would have too. I hate needles.
Oh, I mean, it was just like, it's like the mental gap that you just don't even realize, where it's like, yes, I'm a kid, and I feel like I'm an adult, but it's like, what should I be told and what should I not be told to be able to just do stuff and get stuff done? So it was like just driving there back and forth, and it was like, so that was 6 weeks I was doing that every single day.
Wow, that's crazy. So for 6 weeks, every day you're driving 3 hours there, 3 hours back, 3 hours there.
No. The ride there wasn't 3 hours. It was 3 hours round trip.
Okay.
Going there because it was COVID, so no one was on the road.
Oh yeah.
Which also was like, it was like weird because it also benefited us, because it's like I didn't have to spend money on a hotel there because we were just going to pay for a hotel and then go there. So it really worked out. So oddly enough,
while getting this treatment, obviously I know there's a lot of side effects, negative things that can affect you. What was the worst thing about it for you?
During the chemo, it was really just not eating. It was the eating and the vomiting was really bad. And it was because it's like, so my first round of chemotherapy I was actually allergic to the chemo. So basically we did it. They found out I was allergic to it. So then basically on my 16th birthday, I was in the hospital. And it's like, my family had planned a whole hibachi dinner surprise party with everyone. Because I was like texting everyone before my birthday. It's like, yo, let's go. I want to do a hibachi for my birthday. You should all pull up. Everyone was like, no, I can't, bro. And I was like, he's telling me that I just got diagnosed with brain cancer and no one is coming to my birthday party? I was like, what is this bullshit?
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. And everyone was like, no, I can't. I'm so sorry. I'm so busy. And everyone was like, we felt terrible lying. But so I ended up being in the hospital on my birthday because I was allergic to chemo. And then my camp friends, who I hadn't seen since camp, which was like 3 months before, where they all saw me as like the fat kid not knowing anything that was truly going wrong with me, they all surprised me in the hospital for my birthday. So it was like they came from New Jersey, they came from Westchester, they were in the city, they came from Roslyn, and everyone just came to the city to see me. And it was like, because they were originally supposed to be at the hibachi place, and it was like seeing people that want to just come out of their way to see you was just something that really like pushed me. And it was like, these are people who care about me. I see that. And then afterwards, we did end up having the hibachi party. My camp friends couldn't make it, so it was just like my home friends who were all there. But it's like knowing that people go out of their way to plan things specifically for you, just to support you, was really a huge thing.
So that definitely kind of helped you and pushed you throughout this entire journey. So was there anything specific you remember, like a day where it was just absolute hell? Like, was there one specific day, or it could be a week, whatever it was? What was the worst stretch during this time?
So I'd say my worst stretch was like, I went through one of my cycles. So I had a 3-day cycle and then I had a 6-day cycle because I needed so many fluids for it. Because basically with my cancer, I have this thing called diabetes insipidus. My brain doesn't tell my kidneys to filter my water, so I get dehydrated very easily. That's why I always have waters on me. It's like when I go to school, I carry 6 waters in my backpack just to start the day.
Wow.
So it's like I always continuously need to be drinking water. So when I was going through treatment and I was getting all these fluids, and it was just like the ability where it's like I wouldn't even want to stand because I was just felt so weak and so nauseous. And it was like even eating was such a struggle where it'd be like, I need more anti-nausea. And it just, I feel like those were probably the hardest days during the long treatments where I was just stuck in the hospital. And like, of course my brothers were coming to see me and stuff, but it was always just I'm here and this is just miserable, where it's like I couldn't shower while getting treatment because I had my port access. Basically when you access your port, it's like anytime you unaccess it or touch it, chance of infection. Chance of infection is another 3 days in the hospital. So I was like, I'm not fucking showering, I'm not doing anything. So it's like I'd be walking around with a chemo pole all around the hospital, and it would just be like this is what I have to deal with, but this is what it is. It's like I really had no other choice. Or it's like they'd be like, you have to pee in the jar, and it's like, I'm sorry, I don't need my mom sitting with me as a 16-year-old. Like, I don't want my mom sitting with me while I'm peeing in a jar. It's like, that's not a thing I want to do. And it was really like accepting like the awkwardness that my parents are like, whatever, we don't care. We've seen you since you were a baby. Mm-hmm. It's like my mom pulls that card. It's like, it's still weird. It doesn't matter. But it's like those were like the hard days when I was really just tired and just couldn't physically move. Because I just didn't want to. It was like, I want to stay in bed and I want to sleep and do nothing. Where it's like, I had my friend Luke, who was really close with me, and he would literally take the train into the city and then walk from Penn Station to NYU to watch. And literally, he'd come all the way from Great Neck to the city, be sitting with me, talking to me, and then I'd just be like, just sleep. Luke would do it for like 2 hours while I just slept there. And it's like, to know that someone has the mental capacity to think about me and then go and see me and then just watch me sleep, where it's like, I feel bad when I did that. But it's like, can I really feel bad about doing that? So it was like, it's like, those were always the harder days when like I'd see people that were like coming out of their way to see me, and I'd be like, nah, I'm too tired, I'm sorry. Or I'd just zone out and she'd be like, goodbye.
Yeah. So like, what was going through your head at that time, right? Because you kind of just described the physical aspect of it, right? Where, you had so many uncomfortable situations, right? Whether it was with your parents, friends, you felt bad, right? Which obviously you shouldn't, but, you're feeling bad for what was happening. What was going on in your head?
Really, in my head, it was a lot of it was sadness. It was weird. It's like during my whole illness, I had a girlfriend named Haley. So it's like I had a girlfriend this whole entire time. She was a senior, I was a junior. So it was weird because it's like I felt bad always mentally because I'm like, why is this girl with me? I feel terrible for her. She's getting missing stuff from me. She's hanging out with me instead of being with her friends. And it was just always like, I wouldn't say it was a mental drain on me because, it was never really that in the moment. But looking back, it was. But I'd say like when when going through treatment, it's really, you sit and you deal with it, and it's really draining in that, you're missing stuff, you're seeing stuff that isn't. It's like my grandparents, they stayed home from Florida. They were with me the whole entire time because my parents were in the city working at the time. And it's just, it's seeing that people go out of the way for you and that you feel bad for them. And it's like, I always apologize to my parents. I'm like, I'm sorry. I always say I'm sorry to people. And it's just like, I'm sorry because I made them sit there and deal with stuff with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I guarantee you not one person has ever been like, oh, I have to sit here with him. They were doing it because they love you.
Well, that was the whole thing, and everyone was like, we don't care, don't worry.
Exactly.
I mean, it would even be like, it took me a while for me to even get used to, like, going out late, for example. And it was always a mental thing. So it'd be like, basically, I'd have my friends text me, like, yo, come over. Come hang out. 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, fuck that shit. And I'd be like, my dad. I'm like, or it's like last year I tried pledging the frat. And it was like, basically pledging would start, you'd have to drive there at 9 o'clock. And I'd be like, I'm not driving there at 9 o'clock. I don't have the energy to drive there at 9 o'clock. Especially because I wasn't in the shape where I'd be like, oh, I want to do this. But it's like, in my head, I'm like, I'm seeing all these other kids who are in their fraternities. I see my friends who are like, bro, fucking pledging was crazy, dude. Telling me the stories when they came back during Thanksgiving break and stuff. And I was like, I want to do that. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, also seeing people who understand it is a big thing. It's like, when I tried doing it, it was like, the guys were like, nah. Like, they weren't saying, no, you can't be in it. It was more of like, we'll give you leeway, but it's like, we can't do it too stretched. And I was like, I ended up just dropping it. Because I was like, I can't handle it going there at 9 o'clock at night and then leaving there at 12. But it was also, I didn't want to drive, so my dad would be driving me.
Oh, really?
My dad would drive me there at 9 and then get me at like 11. Or like
so
one of my
brothers.
brothers. Yeah. And it was like, I know my dad's got to wake up for work in the morning. And it's like, I wouldn't say it was guilt, but it was like, my dad always said, like, I don't care, it's fine. But it was always like, I feel bad for him. And it's like, but I want to do this for myself. But at the same time, it's like, you get a realization of like, I can't just do this. And it always makes me look at stuff where it's like, my friends want to go away. And it's like, well, if I go with them, then I have to bring all my medications. I have to bring my injections. I have to bring water and stuff like that. And it's like, there's always the mental drain of pushing myself back and holding myself back because I'm nervous to do stuff, which I think always makes me upset and makes me like want to be like, fuck this shit. Sorry for cursing so much.
No, you're
but
good.
it's like that's just the mentality I have. It's like I wish I could be like everyone else, where it's like, let's go to my Hanson's house, bro. We can hang out on my boat, and it's like, I can't.
Yeah.
Well, obviously I can, but it's, do I want to allow myself to do that? Or it's like senior year of high school, I did school online.
Oh, really? Okay.
I did school fully online because I was still immunocompromised. I didn't like the hybrid schedule. My brothers were home, and I was like, you know what? I can do school online. But of course, I still want to do lacrosse. And it was like even doing lacrosse, it was like everyone, I had to go to my doctor. They had to check me. They had to make sure everything was fine. They had to make sure my shoulder would be fine because of my port. And it was like, just every practice, it was like, I know I'm in the worst shape out of everyone here. 100%. I've been sitting on a fucking bed for the past year. And it was pushing myself to even want to go to that. My brother would always be like, let's go. Because Aaron, my oldest brother, my middle brother, he did lacrosse with me. I was a freshman who was playing with varsity because Aaron was a senior. Mm-hmm. So it was always like, our connection was playing lacrosse. And Aaron was like, you have to do lacrosse. And it was getting people to do it with me. Because like senior year, no one wanted to do lacrosse with me. And it was the mentally of like, if I'm going to do it, I want people to do it with me. And it was like, wanting to team up with people. And it was like, when people were like, oh, I don't want to do it. Like that was like more training. And it was like upsetting. And I think like, when you have people who are with you and you have people who want to do stuff with you and support you and do an activity with you, then it just mentally helps you. Because it was like, sure, I want to drive myself to do this, but I need people to also support me while I do it too. Yeah. I can't just do it alone. And I think that when I was looking at it in my head, and it was like, for me, it was emotional. It was like, lacrosse to me was very important. And to see that people don't want to do it with me was even worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially because at this time, now you're able to start doing it. And when you weren't, then, now you wanted to and everybody was doing it. And then you couldn't. And like you said, now you can. So during this whole time, did you start that foundation around this time, or was it more recent? I want you to
No.
get into that.
Okay. So, basically, when I started JZips, I was going through chemo. And, I'm a 15-year-old teenager. I'm chubby and uncomfortable. My mom was looking online, and she found adult-sized t-shirts with Mediport zippers. Only adults, though. Blank t-shirts made of, like, a crappy material. And, we were looking at it, and it was like, this is crap. So my grandmother, who stayed home from Florida, her mother worked in the garment center. So she knew how to sew and everything. And then my mom knew how to sew, and we just wanted to keep busy. So we ended up just ordering shirts off Amazon. Then my mom would sew them. I started the social media page, and we would just give them out to kids in the clinic. Because they saw I was wearing one, and they were like, well, where'd you get one? Like, can we have one? Can you send us the website? We're like, they don't make them for kids, as I was in a pediatric clinic. So then we ended up sewing them and doing everything. And then we just give them to kids in the clinic. Then once we started the social media, we had people reaching out via DMs, be like, hey, can we have a Mediport shirt? And then we were thinking of a name, JZips, because Jody, Judy, and Jordan all have J's. So JZips. And then it was really just getting the ball rolling, or it was like getting it as a nonprofit, which if you ever made a nonprofit, it's a pain in the butt. And having people who want to help us, being able to make the connections. And then, really for me, when I was doing it, it was emotionally positive. Because it was like, yes, I'm going through chemo, but I can also impact others while doing it. And I think that for my mom, as she always says, it's a way for us to vent our energy, even though we had no energy. But it was a way for us to mentally look at something and vent it out in a positive way. Because I think when sick, I needed to distract myself. Because if I just looked at it and I was like, I'm a kid who's sick, and it's like I would look at myself, I'm slowly losing hair, I'm losing my eyelashes, I'm losing my eyebrows. It was like at one point I had no nose hair. If I had a booger, it would just slip out.
Really?
Oh my god, it was so weird. But it was like you have to look at something, and it's like I also liked. I wouldn't say liked, but it was nice meeting kids who were in similar positions.
Yeah, because it shows you're not alone. And that's even why it's great that you're here today, because you're showing kids you can get through this, right? You're not alone. Yeah, it may be tough, and it's a long battle, and it's a journey, but you're through it, right? And you're that beacon of hope, and you're that light for people to say, hey, I could do this. I could still go to college. I could still get a great education. I could still do whatever the hell I want. And that's not going to stop you. And I think you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah, really, as people say, it's a bump in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought it was also really, because it was like, I'm speaking to these kids. So some kids have moved, like, at NYU especially, because it's a magnet hospital. It comes from kids all around the world go there. And, I'd be speaking to kids, I'd be giving them their JZips, and it'd be like, some kids would be like, I've lived in like 3 states. It's just because I need better treatment. And it's like, when you have that mental step back, and it's like, wow. And you get to spend a moment with someone, and it's like, you get to touch with them, where you can both relate. It's like, I remember this kid, Andy, who's in remission now. But Andy's like the man. It was like we'd be sitting with each other, we'd be talking about video games and stuff, and it was like, sure, he's 2 years younger than me. But just, having a kid who you can sit and speak to and verbally interact with versus like, because, I think a lot of the hardest thing for parents was they couldn't speak to their kids. They didn't know what was wrong with their kid because they had babies. Versus me, I could express my emotions. I could tell my parents I'm not feeling well. I need anti-nausea. I need water. I need stuff. I need food. And I think that when you mentally look at that and you like take a step back and it's like, wow, I'm in this position. I can do this. And you see others that can't speak for themselves. And it's just, for me, it was always very emotional. It was very like made me upset because you can't speak for a 2-year-old. It doesn't work like that.
No, you can't. Exactly. And that's why I think it's seriously so amazing what you've done with this organization because, as you're going to get into it, it really, like, I was even telling my mom before you came, I was like, when he was telling me about it, it like, made me want to cry. I was like, it's so nice what you're doing, and it's not only helping kids, but it's also helping these parents, right? You're putting a smile on people's faces when it might be hard for them to smile. So you really have a lot to be proud of, and I think you know that. But it's just very amazing and outstanding to me how you could turn such a bad situation and such a negative thing into something so positive. And it really, really takes a special person to do that. So seriously, I really do think it's amazing. And it's just like, it almost leaves you speechless. You know, it's like you just have nothing but great words to say about everything because it really is. It's amazing. It really, really is. So get into this next part with the organization, what you wound up doing, how it wound up growing, and where you're kind of at today.
Okay. So for JZips, we've now, I mean, since we've started, JZips has now sent out over 7,000 shirts. We've partnered with 32 hospitals. And so my make-a-wish was I wanted to meet Disney executives because I wanted to see how they worked. So basically I had a character, I want to say. Because with JZips, I look at it as the character association. Because are you a Disney fan?
Yeah, I like Disney.
So I always ask people as a personality trait, who's your Disney character? And it's not who's your favorite Disney character, who is your character? For me, I mean, I count Marvel too. I'm that guy. But it's like, I said Iron Man. People say, why Iron Man? And it's like, so basically, to start, I have a port in my chest. Iron Man had his arc reactor. So it's that so it's like my JZips would literally have an arc reactor and then would have the zipper for my port. So I was like, I want to be like Iron Man. And I also go with this mentality of like, I was kind of an asshole before I got sick. I was the douchey lacrosse player, didn't really care about people as much. And it was like, when you look at Tony Stark before he got his arc reactor, he was that exact guy. Party animal, didn't care about anything. And it's like, I correlate myself to that. And then it's like my bar mitzvah. Have you ever seen Iron Man movies?
No.
Oh, all right. So basically, there's this thing called the Stark Expo. And where the event is held in the movie is where I had my bar mitzvah.
Oh, cool.
So it's like I even correlated with that. And it's like, so when I got my port taken out, my aunt, she knew I loved Iron Man too. If you ever seen the movies, when he gets his arc reactor out, he gets proof Tony Stark has a heart. But for my port, I would say proof Jordan Harouche beat cancer with my port in it. So it's like when I have the correlation, especially with JZips, where it's like people look at something and they want positivity. I looked at my shirt and I was like, I felt like I was a superhero. We're kids who want to wear. So we put in our JZips orders, we put comments where it's like, what type of shirt would you like? So kids like, my son loves dinosaurs. We're going to make sure he gets a dinosaur t-shirt. Mm-hmm. It's like, we don't care if we have to order it from Amazon. We'll make sure he has a dinosaur t-shirt. My daughter loves princesses because she wants to be a princess. We'll get her a princess shirt. And it's like, it's the correlating a t-shirt with a positive message, which I think mentally helps kids where they feel it. Because also we were talking to nurses and they explained to us that it's a perfect icebreaker with someone. Because it puts them in that mental space where like, this isn't a scary person. This is someone who's a friendly person. Because, you're speaking to a kid. You have a needle in your hand. No kid wants to look at you. When you go to a kid and say, I love your t-shirt. Are you a little princess? And then you do their accessing for their port, which basically is taking a needle and shoving it in your chest. Mm-hmm. It gives that break in the ice that people really feel. And they say that mentally for the kids, it helps them a lot, as they've heard from parents, that they feel like they're associated with that character and they love that. Where it's like, parents tell us, they're like, my kid won't stop wearing it. I need another one. Because they want to wear it out of treatment because they feel like that shirt gives them power. Which for me mentally, knowing that and knowing that kids mentally feel that way, where it's like something that's an object gives you that association towards it is so important to them, really.
Yeah, and for you to be able to provide that is so special. So you have one with you, right? If you want to pull it out and show it to the camera in front of you. So everybody, if you guys are viewing it on YouTube, you can see what it's like. And I'm going to be linking everything in the descriptions. If you guys are just listening to the audio version, I'll be posting clips on Instagram, whatever, so you guys will be able to see it there. But this is the shirt. So they come in all different sizes, right? And so that's really, really cool. So you guys...
And then so it's like, for me, my port was on this side. I have a scar. But you open it and go like this instead of you having to sit there with a gown with your butt out the whole time.
Okay.
Which, especially for me, I hated it. It was so bad because it was like I was so self-conscious because mentally it's like before. So basically, I went to sleepaway camp at 140 pounds. I left at 180. I gained 40 pounds at sleepaway camp, and it's like I have stretch marks. I have everything on me, and it's just like you feel just like mentally. I was embarrassed because at camp it was like everyone would joke with me like Jordan has a fat ass. I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, I have a fat ass. Not realizing they were just shamelessly kind of calling me a fat ass. Yeah. But like, for me, it was like, I'll play it. Because it's like, whatever. I can't do anything about it. And it's like, even when my parents saw me, they're like, on visiting day, they're like, you got so fat. And it's like, I'm sorry. I love Jewish sleepaway camp. The food was terrible. It was so bad. And it's like, they're like, how are you gaining this weight? And I was like, I don't know. So that's when it really started going through. But it's like, when you're a teenager and you're sitting there with a gown that basically has your whole body open to the world, it's like no one wants to be that way. Versus wearing a shirt, it's like you have your own privacy, you have your own way of showing yourself and exposing yourself, which I think gives also the kids control, because we have a lot of nurses tell us that mentally it helps kids because, and especially with me, when I got my port access the first time, I was scared shitless. I fainted the second they did it. It was like instantaneous. I fainted. I'd never fainted before. I fainted, and then once I woke up, they're like, "Are you okay?" and everything. They go crazy. I mean, lucky, obviously, it was in a hospital, but it's just knowing that you need to wait until the kid is ready. Because for me, it was always the mental capacity of like, "Are you ready?" And I'd be like, "I'm ready." I'd unzip, which gives me control of the situation, which for me was always a positive way of looking at it instead of having someone do it for me. Which we get a lot from parents about it, where where kids have the control of the situation where they are saying, I'm mentally ready. And it was also like, days I'd be nauseous and I'd vomit all over myself. I could unzip both sides, slip it down, take another one, pull it up and zip them together. Because you can't unaccess the port. So it'd be like the ability to change, which is like something we didn't realize originally till we gave it to a parent and they said we love it because when my son vomited on himself, we were able to unzip both sides, pull it down, then take another one that they gave us. Because the clinic that I go to, we did 100. We just let them sit there because if anyone needs one, anyone comes in, give it to them. That's it. The girls are on call. So basically my nurse Marie, she lives 15 minutes away from me. We call her like our little underground way of getting it there. Basically, I just drive to our house in New Hyde Park, drop them off, and she brings them in. Because it's like, there's always a need for it.
That's so cool. That really is. Like, that's seriously so amazing. And show it one more time just so everybody can see it. So yeah, pretty much what he's saying is if you happen to throw up on yourself, it's so easy to change. You just unzip both of them and then you can take it right off, which is so cool. That's another thing. Like you said, I didn't even realize that. What would you tell somebody who just found out they have cancer? A kid, I think you should gear it towards a kid because that's when you found out. But what would you tell them?
With a kid, I mean, I think you should always have a positive outlook towards it. Because it's like, when an adult has cancer, an adult's mentality is always very different. Because it's like, my uncle had cancer. My uncle, where it's like my dad's uncle, if that makes sense. So it's like, he had cancer. He won't talk about his cancer. To him, it's dead zone. It's like, you talk about it, you bring it up, he'll shun you. And it's like, it's because he had a bad treatment journey. Adults aren't treated as well as kids for sure. And I think, especially as a kid, you're swarmed with so many different things. You have school, you have your friend group, you have whatever you're going through, you have applying for college, you have sports. And it's like to get all of that and put it on pause and just being prepared for that, I think it's really just admirable for kids to be able to do that. And it's like, especially for the little kids where it's like they're like 7 years old and it's like they're just starting school where it's like they're truly making their friend groups, and it's like it's crazy to think that they have to go through that. And it's like I think they mentally just need to put everything on hold, which is hard to tell a 7-year-old. No 7-year-old can do that. And it's like I always just say it's like stay positive. take each step at a time. It's not just all one big thing. Because, like, they sit there and they tell you the whole entire thing you're going to probably go through. And it's like, I can tell you this, none of the shit they told me that I was going to go through was a straight line. It would be like, I'd have a round of treatment. Stop. You need blood cells. So then I'd go and I'd get platelets. And you know what platelets are? Basically, you go and you get platelets, which is like a half hour. Then it'd be like, oh, you need blood. And it's like, I'm telling you, getting blood is crazy. You feel awesome afterwards. It's like the most like oomph mentality ever. But it's like, there's things that are just oddly rewarding when you do it, if that makes sense, while you go through it. And it's like each thing is a milestone that you go through. And I think that as a kid, you should look at it as each thing is a milestone, and going through school and everything. It's like I did online school. The teachers who I had not online, it was like in person. It was like I only took English and social studies. The two teachers I had were awesome. They completely understood my situation. I mean, I still talk to my social studies teacher who did it online with me. Not online, but it was in person, and then it moved to online once the pandemic started. But it's just taking each step at a time for sure for a kid. And also just, I don't want to say enjoying each moment because it's not enjoyable, but
making the best of it.
Making the best of it, yes. I couldn't get the words. Because it's like, I think it's understanding and realizing that people truly appreciate you. Because it's like, this is like basically before I was sick, I wouldn't say I was the most loved kid in my high school. Because, I had fights with people, I had arguments with kids in my group, and it was like, to see that people would obviously step out of their way to make sure that I was like being helped, that I was being supported, dropping me off food and stuff like that. Or it's like families would come and deliver us dinner because they knew like we were in the city, or like taking care of my brothers because they were also home and they needed stuff. And it's like knowing people go out of your way, and it's like really just taking a moment and understanding like these are your friends for life, for the people who you start with and end with.
Yeah, and that's so important too. I think that's important for any situation, whether you're going through mental health struggles, physical struggles, health struggles, whatever it is, it's so important to realize that there are people there for you. Would you go back and change anything? Would you go back and change the fact that you had cancer?
So I don't really had someone ask me that question. That's interesting. A good one. I do think about that sometimes. Like, what if I didn't have cancer? And when I was younger, I was like, I want to be a college lacrosse player when I was little. And it's like, looking back, I would never want to be a college lacrosse player. Like now, especially. But it's like, and I think about it, and I think about like, oh, what I missed and stuff. And it's like, I wouldn't say I would ever want to not have had cancer. But obviously I wouldn't want to have had cancer. I think it grew me as a person, where it changed my personality from being a little kid to being a grown adult, to understanding different things about life. Where if I didn't have cancer, I wouldn't have known, if that makes sense. Because I think that as you go through different things in life, you realize, like, if I didn't go through this, then how would I have ended up? It's something that, like, I can't say I would take away from me, but it's a part of me. I just think that cancer is a club that you don't want to be a part of, but once you're in it, you're a part of it for life. And I think that it's something that where I speak to people who have had cancer or while going through treatment, it's like it's a level that you relate to people no matter the age. So it's like when I was getting proton treatment, it was an adult center. There's no kids. They do the kids in the morning because the kids usually are knocked out, so they stay still. Not knocked out, but whatever. They get anesthesia, so they sleep, so they stay still. Versus, since I was later in the day, because I was old enough to stay still, I'd be with the adults. And the first day I was there for my actual treatment, not getting the tattoos and everything, you wear a robe. You're naked. So I walk in, I'm like, well, this is a shitty spa. So you walk in, you're sitting with all these adults. We're all sitting with robes. I'm the only kid there. And everyone starts laughing. And it's like, when you sit there and it's like, I'm talking to this guy, Rick, and Rick has had like 4 cancers at this point. He's going through proton radiation while he's still getting chemotherapy. And he's like talking to me and everything. This guy's got a positive attitude. And it's just like, he's like, I'm grateful. I'm like, he's like, people don't go this far. People don't work this hard. People give up. And it's just like, when you look at someone who has that mentality, that outlook, who's just sitting there so positive, it makes me feel positive. It makes me not want to be here, but know that I'm going to get through this. This is someone who's done it. I'm going to do it too. And it's like knowing that, where it's like you have that place somewhere where it's like, it's not, you think you would sit in a cancer clinic or something like that and you'd be like just so negative towards everyone, where it's like even the nurses just have such a smile on their face where they want to keep you positive. So it's like my nurse, Brittany had childhood cancer, and she had, she went through it as a kid. She went through it all of her life, and she decided to give back by being a nurse. And it's like knowing that someone has the dignity in themselves to be able to do that and pass it on, their gratitude, it's so inspiring. And it's just like when you have someone sitting with you telling you that story while you're going through treatment. What's even crazier was Brittany actually was one of my aunt's students, and she didn't realize till like we started getting to know each other. And it's awesome to see stuff like that, where that someone didn't let something stop, like let cancer stop them. And then you're also in I don't want to say the same boat. You're in this like similar situation where it's like you're a kid who's having cancer, and it's like she didn't let that stop her. She kept going. She decided to give back. And it's like seeing that like really inspired me, and mentally like seeing people who are like, yeah, I experienced this when I was younger and I didn't let it stop me. It's like my best friend Matthew, his sister had cancer. She's just graduating school, getting a job and everything. And it's like seeing people like that, where it's like these people didn't let it stop them. They kept going. And it's like that mentally for me really pushed me and gave me a drive to want to do better, do well, get healthy and stuff like that.
It really, really is an amazing story. I mean, you have so much to be proud of. Your family, your friends, everybody around you has so much to be proud of. Is there anything else you would like to touch on in the episode? If there's nothing else you would like to touch on, I want you to plug yourself one more time. And like I said, I'm going to be linking everything. But is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
I mean, really, it's like stuff to touch on. I would say just continuous being positive. Look at something from another point of view. See stuff differently. I think it's just always a huge thing to understand what you're going through, but take a step back sometimes and just look at everything as a whole is really important. But basically the end of it.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And yet again, like I said, plug yourself one more time. Give us the link, all that stuff.
All right. The website for JZips is jzips.org. JZips. And then the Instagram is just J_zips.
All right, perfect. So please go check him out, follow him. It really, really helps him and furthers his mission. Thank you so much for coming on. You really have a lot to be proud of, and I really can't wait for people to listen to this, and it's going to really help them push themselves to realize, keep going, right? There's no reason to stop. Keep going, keep pushing, and everything will get better. Thank you guys so much for listening, and don't forget to check out Dark Angel Company on Instagram at Dark Angel Co. and online at darkangelco.com. If you're interested in supporting and spreading awareness towards bringing light to a dark topic together, then tune in next time.